I found out the truth on a Tuesday, not because he confessed, and not because our therapist coaxed it out of him, but because his phone buzzed at 2:14 a.m., and he didn't hear it. When I reached for it, I thought it'd be a work text. I didn't expect to see her name, glowing like an open wound. I didn't expect to read 18 months' worth of messages either, or to realize I had been crying alone while he laughed with someone else. And that was only the beginning. I used to think the worst kind of heartbreak was the explosive kind, the kind you see in movies. Tears, screaming, dramatic exits, broken plates. But the real heartbreak? The kind that spreads like mold? It's quiet. So quiet you don't even notice it stealing into your bones. That's how it started for me. Before everything fell apart, our home looked normal. Too normal. The kind of normal you don't trust in hindsight. It was winter. Gray skies, gray sidewalks, gray moods. Our kids were tiny, both still in the stage where silence was either miraculous or terrifying. I was still learning how to be a mother again after the storm of postpartum depression, that fog so thick I could barely breathe some days. He, my husband, Aaron, kept telling me everything was fine. You're just tired. You're overthinking. You're not alone, babe. I'm right here. But he wasn't. Not really. He was there physically, like a piece of furniture you bump into in the dark. But emotionally, he was drifting, checking out, pulling away. I'd ask him if he wanted to sit on the couch with me after the kids went down. No, I'm going to bed early. I'd ask if he wanted to talk or cuddle or watch a show. Too tired. He told me I was imagining things. He told me he loved me. He told me I was enough. The lies, they sound so much sweeter before you know they're lies. Back then, whenever I caught him smiling at his phone, I believed him when he said it was a meme from a coworker, or a fantasy football group chat, or some long-standing thread with his sister. He was good at lying. Too good. I remember the night I asked, "Are we okay?" And he sighed like I was hurting him. "Yeah, we're fine. Why do you always assume something's wrong?" Because something felt wrong. Because my stomach twisted every time he turned away in bed. Because somehow I felt like an intruder in my own marriage. But I stayed quiet. Because that's what women do when they're afraid of breaking something. They swallow the shards and smile. It wasn't a single moment that broke us. It was hundreds of tiny fractures. A little withdrawal here, a double take at his lock screen there, a laugh at a notification he thought I didn't see. But the biggest crack? The one that started the avalanche? It happened when I was 8 months pregnant. He came home later and later. Always work stuff, always just tired. One night, I asked if he'd rub my back, my swollen, aching, overstretched back. He used to love doing that. But now, "Babe, can I just have 5 minutes? I'm talking to someone." Someone. Not the guys, not my sister. Someone. Something in me tightened. "Who?" I asked. He froze. It was barely noticeable, but I caught it. "Just a friend." "Which friend?" "Why does it matter?" "Because everything matters when you're being replaced." I didn't push. I didn't interrogate. I didn't cry. I just nodded and pretended my heart didn't sink like a stone. In therapy months later, I would learn that healthy couples communicate. They ask hard questions. They name their needs. They don't tiptoe around their spouses. But back then, I was drowning and calling it devotion. After I gave birth, things got worse. Postpartum hit me like a truck. Insomnia, anxiety, guilt, intrusive thoughts. You don't understand the darkness of postpartum until you've lived in it.
You don't understand the way your brain betrays you. And instead of supporting me, he slipped further away. He'd wake up early to go to the gym, but came home smelling like cologne instead of sweat. He'd sit next to me, but angle his phone away. He'd laugh at things on a screen, but look irritated when I asked what was funny. Then came the day I texted him a picture of our baby smiling for the first time. He responded with, "Cute, busy ATM." He never asked to see more pictures. He never came home early. He never showed the excitement new dads show. But the real punch to the gut came weeks later when I found out he had been excited, just not with me. He had been sharing daily pictures of our meals, our kids, our vacations, not to his family, not to friends, but to her, his ex, the one he said he hadn't spoken to in almost a decade. He was giving her what I begged him to give me: his attention, his jokes, his tenderness, his daily life. That was the betrayal that killed something inside me long before I found the messages. Because the truth is, you don't need sex for infidelity. You just need intimacy that doesn't belong to you anymore.
I wish I could say I found out because I was brave, because I trusted my instincts, because I finally decided I deserved answers. But the truth? I found out because his phone buzzed while he was asleep, and my baby was screaming, and I was running on 90 minutes of scattered sleep, and my brain was so fried I wasn't even thinking straight. It was survival mode. It was chaos. It was exhaustion. And sometimes exhaustion makes you honest. It was 2:14 a.m. Our youngest had been teething for days. The kind of teething that makes babies claw at their cheeks and scream like the world is ending. I had tried everything: cooling rings, rocking, singing, pacing, crying silently into her soft hair so she wouldn't feel my tears. Aaron was passed out beside me, dead to the world. Typical. His phone was on the nightstand, face up. Also typical. He never left it face up anymore, not for months. The vibration made me jump, not because a message was unusual, but because it came at a time when nobody should be texting. I leaned over just to check if it was work, if someone needed him, if maybe he'd want to wake up and help. I didn't expect to see that name. Emily. The ex. The ghost of his life before me. The woman I had never met but always felt like a shadow in the doorway. My stomach flipped so violently it felt like I might throw up. The preview said, "Haha, you're ridiculous." Nothing sexual, nothing explicit, but something far worse. Familiarity, comfort, inside jokes, late night access, everything he denied me. Something inside me cracked open. Not a clean break, but a shattering. I should have put the phone down. I should have walked away. I should have gone back to rocking my crying daughter and tried to survive the night. But betrayal has gravity, a pull so powerful it bypasses every rational thought you have left. My hand moved on its own. I unlocked the phone, his password still the same birthday he pretended he wasn't upset I always forgot. The message thread was open. I scrolled, and the world as I knew it ended. He had been talking to her almost every day for a year and a half. While I was pregnant, while I was crying in the shower, while I felt invisible, while I asked him if something was wrong and he swore on our children that there wasn't, while he told me he had no time or energy to talk to me, there it was. Page after page of easy banter, jokes, emojis he rarely used with me anymore, photos of meals we ate together but he only shared with her. She sent pictures too. Her dog, her apartment, her new haircut. Nothing sexual, but intimate in a way that cut deeper than sex. And then I saw it. A drunken message from him at 1:38 a.m. on a night he told me he was sleeping in the guest room because he needed space. "Can I be honest with you?" She replied, "Sure, are you okay?" A long pause. Then, "Can you send me a picture? Something pretty." No winky face, no explicit wording, but something far worse. I knew exactly what it meant. My face went hot. My fingers trembled. My heart went silent in my chest, like it forgot how to beat. She replied, "Don't be stupid. You're drunk. Go to bed." He apologized. She comforted him. He said he didn't know why he asked. She said she understood. I felt sick. My baby's cries had turned into soft whimpers against my shoulder, but I barely heard her. My whole world had narrowed to the blue glow of that screen. I scrolled further. I shouldn't have, but I did. I found the part where he told her I was emotionally volatile postpartum and impossible to talk to. She said, "You deserve to be happy." And he told her, "You've always understood me better than anyone." And worse, I found the parts where he screenshotted my messages to him and sent them to her so they could laugh at my overreacting. I almost dropped the phone. My knees buckled. I sat on the edge of the bed shaking so hard it felt like my bones were rattling. How long had I been sleeping beside a stranger? How long had I been loving a version of him that didn't exist anymore? Then I saw something new. A message from his sister, just a few weeks earlier. "Mom and I talked. We're here for you. If you want to leave her, we'll help pay for a custody lawyer." My vision blurred. My ears rang. Custody lawyer. For our children. The ones I carried, the ones I nursed, the ones I stayed awake with while he was talking to his ex. I blinked hard, trying to make the words rearrange into something else. They didn't. They stayed sharp, clear, ice cold. His family, the people I thought were my family after 9 years, had been plotting to take my kids from me. My throat closed. I couldn't breathe. And then, as if my heart was already shredded, a message from his mother. "She is emotionally abusive, Aaron. I don't know how you deal with her. Why don't you just leave already?" He never corrected her, never defended me, never once said, "That's not true." He let them paint me as the villain, the crazy wife, the unstable mother. He let them rewrite me. I read every line, every accusation, every betrayal. The baby had fallen asleep in my arms by the time I finally put the phone down. But I didn't sleep. I didn't cry. I sat there in the dark, staring into nothing, feeling something new settle inside me. Not heartbreak, not sorrow, something colder, sharper, a seed of rage, of clarity, of revenge. The next morning, I didn't explode. I didn't scream. I didn't confront him while shaking and crying like the version of me he had mocked in his messages. No. When the sun came up, I was someone different, someone quieter, someone dangerous. I moved like a ghost through the house, feeding the kids, folding blankets, making breakfast none of us ate. The whole time my brain replayed every message, every laugh he shared with her, every lie he fed me. Aaron wandered into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes, yawning dramatically like he'd run a marathon instead of sleeping through the entire night while I lived through emotional war. "Hey," he said, leaning over to kiss my cheek. I didn't move. I didn't lean away either. Just nothing. He paused. "You okay?" I looked at him, really looked at him. His messy hair, his soft morning expression. The man I once believed was the safest place in the world. My throat tightened, but my voice came out steady. "Yeah, I'm fine." He nodded and reached for his coffee. And in that moment,
I understood why women keep secrets, why they hide their rage behind calm, why they plan. Because fury needs silence to grow roots. I watched him all morning. How he scrolled through his phone, how he smiled at something I knew wasn't a meme, how he hugged our daughter while not looking at me even once. Every minute felt like a test I was grading in real time. He failed, all of them. Around noon, he said, "I'm gonna run to the store. Need anything?" I shook my head. He hesitated at the door. "You're quiet today." "I'm tired," I said softly. He nodded, relieved. I almost laughed at that. Once he was gone, I put the kids in their playpen and opened my laptop. Not to check his messages again, not to cry, but to document. Screenshots. Every one, from the first message to the last. Not because I wanted to leave him, but because knowledge is leverage. Because I refuse to let them paint me as the emotionally abusive wife ever again. Because they had already threatened lawyers. I wasn't stupid. I wasn't naive. I wouldn't be blindsided twice. When he came home, arms full of groceries, I felt my hands clench involuntarily. "That's stuff for dinner," he said brightly. I nodded. He kissed my head again. And I wondered, does betrayal feel different when the betrayer is inches from your skin? Does it change the air? Make it heavier? Make him seem smaller? Because to me, he suddenly felt like a stranger pretending to be my husband. We went to therapy the next week. He held my hand. He joked with the therapist. He talked about how much better we'd been lately. And I sat there hearing echoes of what he told his ex. "She's impossible to talk to. She's unstable. I feel trapped." The therapist asked him, "What's changed for you recently?" He squeezed my hand, smiled, and said, "We feel like we're getting back to ourselves." I stared at him. Back to ourselves. The words tasted like iron, metallic, bitter. He had no idea I knew. No idea I had read everything. No idea the ground beneath him was about to shift. I realized then, this wasn't the breaking point. Not yet. The breaking point wasn't finding the messages. It wasn't seeing my name dragged through a family group chat. It wasn't reading him ask for a pretty picture at 1:38 a.m. The breaking point was knowing something he didn't know I knew, a secret sitting between us like a loaded weapon. He thought I was healing. He thought we were reconnecting. He thought I was still in the dark. But I wasn't. And the longer I stayed quiet, the more power I gathered. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt something dangerously close to control. The breaking point wasn't a moment of destruction. It was a moment of rebirth. And the woman I was becoming, she wasn't someone he, or his ex, or his sister, or his mother was prepared to face. Not even close.
Revenge isn't loud. It's not explosive or cinematic or fiery like people fantasize about. Real revenge is calculated, quiet, patient. It's the art of letting the knife sharpen itself. And after reading the messages, after seeing my name dragged to hell and back, after realizing how easily his family was willing to take my children, I knew I could never confront him without a plan. Not because I was weak, but because they were ruthless. They had already discussed custody lawyers, already crafted a version of me that made me sound unhinged, unstable, incompetent. I wouldn't walk into their trap. I would build my own. My revenge plan didn't start as revenge. It started as survival. I began documenting everything, not because I wanted to use it, but because I might need to. I saved the screenshots in a hidden folder with a boring title. Tax Docs 2017. No one looks at tax folders.
especially not men who avoid taxes like emotional conversations. I printed physical copies, stored them in my car, another set in his safety deposit box, another with a friend 2 towns over. Not because I thought he'd destroy evidence, but because his mother would. She was the kind of woman who would burn down her own house if she believed I was hiding inside it. Then I started tracking things. His patterns, his tells, his gym mornings, his late-night texts, when he silenced his notifications, when he suddenly needed to run errands. Not because I wanted to catch him again, but because I needed to understand the rhythm of his deceit. You can't dismantle a machine until you know how it operates. But the real revenge? It started with something much simpler. I stopped trying to make him comfortable. I stopped cushioning his guilt, stopped filling silence with excuses, stopped doing his emotional labor. I let awkwardness bloom. I let pauses stretch. I watched him squirm when I didn't validate him. And he did squirm. He'd reach for my hand, and I let him hold air. He'd kiss my cheek, and I turned just enough for it to be confusing. He'd ask, "Everything okay?" And I'd say, "Why wouldn't it be?" Not cold, not icy, just unreadable. It drove him insane. Because men like him need a temperature reading at all times. They need to know you're warm enough to stay, but broken enough not to leave. I refused to give him the comfort of either. At therapy, I played the part. I laughed, I smiled, I looked like a woman who believed her marriage was healing. The therapist even said, "You seem lighter today." I almost snorted. No, focused, sharp, devastatingly observant. Aaron kept squeezing my hand during the sessions, like he was rehearsing affection for an audience. Little did he know, the audience already knew the script. But revenge isn't just what you do to the betrayer. Sometimes it's what you do for yourself. And I needed space. Not physical space. I couldn't leave without risking my kids. I needed emotional space, identity space, breathing room from the version of myself his family had written into their narrative. So, I rebuilt pieces of myself quietly. I started journaling again, long, angry, ugly entries that felt like scraping muck off my lungs. I dyed my hair slightly darker, something subtle, something symbolic. I joined a mom exercise group, not to lose weight, to reclaim energy. I reconnected with an old friend he didn't like, which suddenly made me like her more. I took the kids to music classes alone. I planned outings that didn't revolve around him. And every time he said, "Why didn't you tell me you were going?" I just shrugged. "I didn't think you'd be interested." He didn't know what to do with this version of me. The version that didn't need him, didn't orbit around him, didn't beg for scraps of affection. He tried harder. He sent me good morning texts, bought me the fancy shampoo I liked, sat next to me on the couch and pretended not to be watching me more than the TV. And part of me, a very small part, still loved him, but a much larger part refused to forget the messages, the lies, the way his family had treated me when I was drowning. Revenge wasn't a goal, it was momentum. But the final stage of the plan formed itself, not because I was malicious, but because they pushed me. It happened on a Saturday. The kids were with me in the living room, building a fort out of couch cushions, while Aaron was in the kitchen washing dishes. His phone buzzed on the counter. I wasn't even trying to snoop, but the name popped up again. Emily. 2 words. You okay? He went very still. Not guilty still, not startled still, more like anticipatory still. Like he had been waiting for her message, and something inside me snapped. Not the loud kind, not the kind that leads to screaming matches. It was the cold, horrifying clarity kind. The kind that says, "You will ruin me again, if I allow you to." And that's when the real revenge plan crystallized. It wasn't about making him hurt. It wasn't about exposing him. It wasn't even about punishing his family. It was about reclaiming the life they tried to take from me. I would not leave him. I would make him leave them. His family, his home base, his safety net. If they wanted war, they picked the wrong mother. My revenge wasn't a strike, it was erosion. And soon they wouldn't even realize how much they'd lost until the ground disappeared beneath them.
The twist didn't come from him. It came from her. But I didn't know that yet. 2 months after discovering the messages, the tension in our house had shifted completely. Aaron was attentive. Too attentive. He brought me flowers. He planned date nights. He cleaned the kitchen without being asked. He picked up the kids from daycare without prompting. It was the kind of husband I had begged for, the kind I prayed for during the worst nights of postpartum. But now, it felt like camouflage. Like guilt management disguised as affection. Like he was trying to make sure I stayed, even though he didn't know I had every reason to leave. I watched him closely, not because I wanted to catch him, but because I wanted to understand his patterns so I could break them. I thought he was hiding something new. I was right, but not in the way I expected. The twist started with a letter. A physical letter. Handwritten, in a floral envelope. No return address. It arrived on a Tuesday. Funny how Tuesdays always seem to ruin my life. I didn't recognize the handwriting. It was neat, looped, almost elegant. The kind of handwriting that belonged to someone with time, patience, and expensive pens. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No greeting, no signature. Just, "You're not crazy. He told me you were unstable, but I know that isn't true. We stopped talking. Please don't blame yourself." My heart stopped. I read it again. And again. My fingers trembled. My breath came shallow. It didn't say who it was from, but I knew. I knew. Emily. She had written to me. Not texted. Not emailed. Not messaged. A letter. Something deliberate. Something she didn't want discovered electronically. My head spun. Why would she write to me? Why now? Why anonymously? I sat down at the kitchen table, staring at the page as if it might rearrange itself. Then I flipped it over. Something handwritten on the back, tiny, and squeezed into the corner as if the writer hesitated before adding it. He told me you hit him. I'm sorry I believed him. I dropped the paper. My stomach lurched so violently I had to grab the table. Hit him. He told her I hit him. I had never hit him. Not once. Not even in anger. The closest I had ever come was slamming a cabinet door too hard during postpartum rage. He had been telling people, not just his family, but his ex, that I was abusive. And she believed him. Of course she did. Who wouldn't believe a man crying about being mistreated by his hormonal, depressed wife? My throat tightened. Something inside me broke. Not the same break as before. Not heartbreak. This was the kind of break that rebuilt itself into something sharper. He hadn't just cheated emotionally. He had rewritten our entire marriage to make me the villain. He used my postpartum depression as a weapon. He framed my pain as violence, my exhaustion as neglect, my anxiety as instability. He had made me into a monster in the story he told everyone else, while pretending to be my supportive husband in therapy. I pressed my forehead to my palm. I felt sick, hot, cold, dizzy. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was character assassination. And then came the real twist. Scrawled in faint ink near the bottom of the letter, "You should check his phone. He told me something about September that you don't know yet." September? What happened in September? September was the month I found him passed out drunk on the couch. The month he said he forgot to pick up our son from daycare. The month he told me he was going through a rough patch. But apparently that wasn't the whole story. I folded the letter with shaking hands. My heart pounded in my ears. The twist wasn't that he lied. I already knew he was a liar. The twist was that someone else, the woman he betrayed me with, had decided I deserved the truth. And whatever happened in September was big enough that even she didn't want to keep it.
The night I decided to look through his phone again felt eerily familiar. Same quiet house, same dim hallway light, same tension humming through my bloodstream. Only this time I wasn't devastated, I wasn't shaking, I wasn't breaking. I was ready, prepared, cold. And that was worse. I walked into the bedroom slowly. Aaron was asleep, mouth slightly open, sprawled across the bed like a man with no ghosts. I stood there for a moment, watching him, wondering how someone could look so peaceful with so much chaos in their wake. Then I reached for his phone. The passcode was still the same, his birthday, the one I always forgot and the one he weaponized against me emotionally whenever it suited him. It unlocked instantly. I navigated straight to September. Message threads, emails, photos, maps timeline. It didn't take long. The chaos was waiting only a few taps away. The first clue was a Lyft receipt. A ride from a bar to an apartment complex I didn't recognize. Timestamp: 1:04 a.m. That was the night he told me he worked late, then fell asleep on the couch, then didn't hear his phone. He had told me so many versions of the story, I couldn't keep track. But his Lyft app remembered. My chest tightened, but I forced myself to keep going. Next, a series of photos, not of another woman, something worse. Pictures of him blackout drunk in someone's living room. Passed out, shirt half off, surrounded by empty bottles, and a baggie of something I didn't want to name. My hands went cold. My stomach clenched. Drugs. He wasn't a drug user, or so he said, but there he was, in high-resolution truth. I kept scrolling. Messages between him and a coworker. Coworker: "Dude, you scared the hell out of us. Thought we'd have to call an ambulance." Him: "Don't tell my name. She'll freak out." Coworker: "She deserves to know. You have a baby at home." Him: "Just shut up, please." Then I found it. A message to his sister. If she finds out about what happened in September, I'm screwed. His sister replied, then get ahead of it. Say she was being crazy that week. She always is postpartum. Spin it. Spin it. Spin my trauma. Spin my exhaustion. Spin my grief. Turn me into the crazy one. Again. 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 My throat closed. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. This was the secret. Not an affair, not a kiss, not a romantic slip. Something scarier. He had been blackout drunk with hard drugs around while I was home alone with a newborn, and he had intentionally hidden it from me, from therapy, and from everyone except the people helping him rewrite reality. I sat on the edge of the bed, breathing quietly, hands steady, heart silent. This wasn't just betrayal. This was danger. This was a man who would risk his children's futures, his marriage, his health, and then blame me if it came out. This was a man who had been one breath away from an overdose and still had the audacity to call me unstable. My revenge didn't just become justified, it became necessary. But before I could step into the next part of my plan, a new twist arrived, and it landed like a punch to the ribs. Another message thread from a contact saved under E. But not Emily. A different number, a different tone, a different type of familiarity. Messages from early October, 2 weeks after the September incident. Her. You were a mess last time. You better be chill tonight. Him. I will be. That was a one-time thing. Her. Good. I don't babysit grown men. Him. Don't be like that. You know I like being around you. Her. Well, your wife probably doesn't. My vision wavered. Another woman. Not romantic, not intimate, not flirty, but someone who had been there. Someone who knew. Someone he had lied to me about and complained about me too. Someone who validated his poor me, my wife is crazy narrative while watching him drown himself in self-destruction. He wasn't cheating sexually. He wasn't in love with someone else. He was in love with the version of himself who got to be the victim. A version of him his family, his ex, and his friend all worshipped. A version built entirely on my silence. That was the moment something inside me changed, permanently. The version of me he fabricated, unstable, abusive, unhinged, died. And the woman that replaced her, she wasn't afraid of him. She wasn't afraid of his mother, or his sister, or his ex, or anyone in his orbit. She wasn't afraid of losing him, because she had already lost respect for him. And losing respect is the real death knell of love. I put his phone back. I tucked myself into bed. I faced away from him. And in the darkness, I made a promise. I will not be destroyed. Not by him, not by them, not by their lies. Not again. The next day was the beginning of the end.
You'd think the final confrontation would be loud. It wasn't. It was terrifyingly quiet. A calm so sharp you could slice your thumb on it. We were in therapy when it happened. Ironically poetic. The therapist asked, "How was communication this week?" He smiled. That easy, casual smile he used to charm waitresses. "I think we're really getting better," he said. "We're closer than we've been in years." I watched him speak like a man giving a TED Talk on self-awareness while knowing he had lied for months on end. He continued, "I'm just trying to be the best husband I can be." I tilted my head. He didn't notice. Men like him rarely notice the details that matter. The therapist asked, "Is there anything left unaddressed? Anything unspoken?" He shook his head. "No, I think we're good." So I said, "I know about September." Silence. Absolute, suffocating, cataclysmic. Aaron froze, mid-breath. The therapist blinked. I continued, voice steady. I know where you were. I know what you took. I know who was there. I know you lied to me, and I know your family coached you on how to cover it up. His face drained of color. He opened his mouth, but I wasn't finished. And I know Emily wrote to me. He flinched. And I know you told her I hit you. His eyes went wide. And I have screenshots of your sister offering to help pay for a custody lawyer. The therapist looked between us, shocked. Aaron finally whispered, How? Why? Why? I repeated calmly. Because you lied to me more effectively than you loved me. He swallowed hard. I didn't want to upset you. No, you didn't want consequences. He covered his face with both hands. I'm so sorry. I didn't respond. The therapist leaned forward gently. My name? What do you need from him right now? I looked at my husband, the man who had stood beside me in vows, and then behind me in betrayal. I took a long breath, and then I said the words that changed everything. I need a boundary, a real one. And here it is. Either your family loses access to our marriage, or you do. He jolted. What? You will tell your mother and sister everything you lied about. Everything. And you will correct every story you fed them. Or we're done. His eyes flooded instantly. Not with guilt, with fear. I can't. You can, I said. You just don't want to. He shook his head like a child. I'll lose them. And I almost lost myself, I replied. Choose. The therapist said quietly, This is a critical moment, Aaron. He broke. He cried. Hard. Ugly. He whispered, You're the only person I've ever really loved, but I didn't think you loved me unless you needed me. And when you were postpartum, you didn't need me. You needed help I didn't know how to give. So I ran. There it was. The truth. Not an excuse. A confession. He wasn't a villain. He was a coward. And cowardice destroys families faster than malice ever could. I exhaled slowly, then said the final line of my revenge. You will also block Emily. Permanently. No goodbye message, no closure, just consequences. He nodded, then whispered, Yes, anything. I'll do anything. And he did. The next month was ugly. He confessed to his mother. She screamed, called me names, said I manipulated him. He told her he had lied. She hung up on him. His sister? Same story. They pulled away. The safety net he thought would catch him evaporated. He chose me, but the choosing came at a cost. He had to sit in the ashes of the lies he built. And I rebuilt myself, piece by piece, not back to who I was, but into someone better, someone clearer, stronger, sharper, untouchable. We moved 3 months later. A new city, a new start. Far from his family, far from the noise, far from the lies. Our marriage is not the same. It will never be what it was, but it's honest. He works harder than I've ever seen, not for forgiveness, but for redemption. I don't admire him the way I once did. Maybe I never will again. But I admire myself.
And that is the emotional closure women rarely get to say out loud. I didn't get the old marriage back. I got myself back. And she was worth saving.
Thank you for listening to this story. Sometimes revenge isn't fire and fury. Sometimes it's reclaiming the version of yourself someone tried to take away. If this story hit you hard, make sure to check out the next one. And remember, no matter how dark someone tries to paint you, the truth always survives.